When you start a program project, it's a good idea to brainstorm away from the computer, and that's normally what a designer does. This particular game we've designed, you can see it's based around two characters, our good guy here and our bad guy. And the whole premise of the game is that you start on 5 lives. Each time the bad guy catches up with the good guy, you lose a life, and the game is over once you reach 0 lives, and a new screen background appears. The bad guy has random movement, which is controlled via the intelligence engine of the game, whereas you control the good guy to try and avoid the bad guy during the game. Okay, now that we have our design conceptualized, it's time to hand over the project to a programmer who will be able to implement this design in Scratch. So the first thing we're going to do is save the project, and you normally have a special area to save it. I'm just going to save this right on my desktop here, and I'll give it the name Good versus Bad V1 for version 1. I'll be the project author. Then I'm going to put in a description about the project, a brief description, so that anybody who's working on the project can pick up and understand the project quite easily based on the description, and then join in helping putting in code to try and get the game to its final design. Just click OK there, so you can see the project name appears here on top of the stage. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on my cat sprite and delete the sprite because it's not a suitable sprite for this game. The game has sort of a cartoonish themes, so I'm just going to introduce some characters here. So my troll here is going to act as the bad guy, and I'm going to go over here to the middle area here and rename this troll bad guy. You can see that maps onto the sprite selection guy area, and we'll introduce another character for our good guy. Another thing that could be done is the characters look rather large in relation to the stage, so we can click up here in the toolbar and use the button, keep clicking, shrinking the sprite until it's a more suitable size relative to the stage. I'm ready to select the background that's suitable, so I just go to the backgrounds tab and I'll import another background from our gallery, our inbuilt gallery in Scratch. You can always create your own background if you wish. So now my background is introduced, I'm ready to select the good guy in my scripts selection area and return to the scripts tab so I can start creating a script for him. Firstly, I'm going to go to the control area and pull out the commands to program in my arrow keys. So when I select the up arrow, down arrow, left and right arrow, for my controls, I need to go to the motion block and attach an appropriate action to those. So I'm going to be changing the X and also changing the Y. To move up, as we know, you will change the Y direction by 10, and to move down we need to change the Y by -10. We all know that because we're very good at our maths. Then of course on the right hand side, to move right, you're going to change direction by 10, and to move left you move by -10. Now if you press your arrow keys, I'm pressing the down key at the moment, you can see that the down script is being executed. We see it flashing there as it gets executed or called when the user interacts and moves the down arrow key, and you can just practice by moving around with your arrow keys and making sure that your sprite moves as you wish. Of course, by changing the nature of the variables, for example, if we move the up arrow, if we change that to 15, the jump is greater and the speed of the up movement, as you can see, is much quicker by changing that variable. So you can just play around with the variables until you get the right speed. Just keep tweaking it. Next we're going to go to the bad guy code and we're going to program him to move randomly. So we're first of all going to trigger this by using the green flag. This is the key that's used to start the game. So then we're going to put in a forever loop because we want this good guy to continue moving forever while the game is playing. He's going to be moving by changing his x and changing his y coordinates. So we'll be moving to change the x and we'll be changing the y coordinates. And we're going to use the random operator here so that the movement appears quite random and it's hard for the player to predict where this character is going to go. So we're going to change so that he moves left and right. We're going to move the x direction by between minus and plus 20. It's going to jumps to 20 in random directions, and the y between minus and plus 20. So we'll pop that into our loop and we'll click our green arrow and see how that executes. Now we can see this is happening rather quickly, so I'm just going to hit the stop key here and stop this movement. And we also have a problem that when he reaches the edge, he starts to move off the screen. So we're going to go to the control area here and put in a wait command. And we're going to just wait maybe a quarter of a second in between each of those commands so that the movement isn't so frantic. So I'll clip in that command here and here. We're also going to put in the command from the motion block, which states if you're on the edge to bounce. So let's execute that. So we can see that the movement is rather slow and jerky. So we're going to put in a bit of rotation there as well, and we're going to turn the character around, and we're going to pick. We're also going to choose the random variable there so that he rotates in different directions. So we're going to rotate between minus 90 and plus 90 degrees here. Of course, you can speed it up by changing the weight. So I'll just stop that script running, and if you ever want to reset the position of the sprite, you can always double click on the top area here above the scripts. It's always good to right click and add a comment to my code to explain what's happening here. So we'll just clip that onto our code. Next we're going to go back to the good guy, and we want to trigger off some code here so that when the bad guy touches him, some action happens and he's got some reaction. So we're going to go into the control area, and of course when the game start arrow is clicked, we want this action to occur, and we want him forever to be looking out for something to happen. So within the forever, we're looking for what's called an if statement, because if the trigger of the bad guy touching him happens at any stage forever during the game, then we want some reaction. So he has to sense here this touching. So as you can see here, this touching block snips right into the if statement. So if he's touching the bad guy, and you can see the benefit of naming the character now the bad guy. So if he's touching the bad guy, let's put in some actions there. Yeah, I like the fisheye effect, so we'll drag that command over here. And I'll set that to 100. And I'm going to say ouch. It really hurts when that bad guy gets me for 1 second. And then I'm going to clear the graphic effect because I want that to be cleared. So let's play the game here and purposely get hit by the bad guy and see what happens. So there we go. Hits him. As the reaction is saying ouch, the fisheye effect goes on, and then the graphic effect clears. So I'll stop the game again. Don't forget again to add a bit of comment there to explain what it is you're doing with pieces of code, especially if there's a block of code involved. Okay, the next thing we're going to introduce to the game is the live system. So in computer programming, the term variable is used for something that changes during a game. And the live, of course, changes depending on the circumstances of the game. So let's make a new variable here. And we're going to call it lives. And that's going to work for all sprites across the game. And that's set up, and you can see it display in the corner. You can knock on and off that display with the button over here on the left hand side in the blocks palette. So I like to have it displaying. It's always good to have your lives and your progress displaying during the game. Now let's go back to that block of code and first of all initialize the variable or set it up when the game starts. So I'm just going to pull out the code here, and when the game begins I need to set my lives, and my greeting or design to set it to 5. Click back on the code there before my looping starts, and again I'll apply comments. That just says to initialize lives to 5 when game starts. Next we need to decrease the lives, so we need to change the lives along with all the rest of the things that happens when the good guy touches the bad guy, when he says ouch and the graphics effect appears. So you want to change the lives by -1 because we're going to go backwards with the lives. You want to go from 5 to 4 for example, and so on. So let's test this. So I play my game, I start with 5 lives, good guy touches the bad guy, we go down to 4 lives and so on. We do hit a problem, we start going into minus lives, so we need to code something in to happen when we hit 0 lives. At this stage we want to introduce the new code to the good guy to finish the game when we reach 0 lives. So we can always, because the code is getting a bit out of hand, I'm just going to clean up the code we have here using that button. Everything looks nice and neat again. I'm going to introduce a new thread of controls. So it's running concurrently with the other thread of setting of the touching. And for this thread, it's going to be forever if. So constantly checking during the game if the lives are equal to 0. So if at any stage during the game, our variable called lives we're going to put out the operators here. We can see we can snip our operator or the equal operator in there. So if any stage our lives, which snips into the first half of the operator, if any stage our lives becomes equal to 0, we're going to send out this broadcast. To find the broadcast, go to the control area, and we're going to pull our broadcast in here. Broadcast is a very good way of sending a message from one element of the game, from the sprite to the other elements, be it the background or the other sprite, to trigger an action for those. So I'm going to set up this new broadcast. I'm going to call it game over. I'm going to click OK. And again, I'm just going to clean up here, and I'm going to apply a comment to that bit of code. First thing I want to happen when the game is over is I want both sprites to disappear. So I'm going to pull out this code again. When I receive the game over broadcast, I'm going to change the looks to hide the sprite. And I'm also going to apply the same code, so I'm going to right click and duplicate this code. I'm going to pull it right onto the bad guy, and you can see that he's got the same code applied to him. That's a handy little trick. Rather than going over to the blocks palette and pulling out the same command, you can always duplicate a bit of code and pull it over. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to program the background of the stage. So down in the sprite selection area, you can also select the stage background here. And I'm going to go to the backgrounds. I'm going to take a copy of the first background. I'm going to call the first one the game on background. I'm going to call it game on screen. I'm going to call this the game over screen. Again, give them names that make sense. They'll help you when you're writing your code. So I'm going to return to the script for the background. So when I receive that broadcast of game over, I can go into the looks area here and I can switch to the game over background. Okay, let's play a test game. I'll click the flag. My lives are reset to 5. I'm going to purposely stick around here and lose all my lives. See what happens when I get to 0. My sprites disappear and my game over screen. Well, I'm not sure is it the game over screen, so what I need to do is I'll just hit the red flag. I'll go into my backgrounds and I'll put a bit of editing here to flag that that's the game over background. I've just clicked on the text button here and typed in game over. Of course, you can be a lot more fancy and take a lot of time yourself if you wish on the background. So you can see that's the background that's applying at the moment. So now we hit the issue of when we restart the game, I don't see the background changing back and I don't see the sprites reappearing, so we need to program that in again, don't we? So the first thing I'll take care of is the background which we're on at the moment. We have it selected, we have the script up here, so it's quite easy. We just pull out the green arrow which starts the game and we go to the looks area and we switch the background back when the green flag is kicked to the game on screen. So you can see the game's back on with that screen when I click the green arrow and the lives are reset to 5. Now let's get the bad guy and the good guy working. So I can attach that command to show the sprite again right there, the green flag, and again I've got overlapping commands, so I can right click and clean up this code, and of course I can right click, I can go to the area here where we're initializing the lives and I can put out that command to show the good guy when the game starts. Okay, let's test this. Let's clean up my code again. I can scroll up and down through that code. As you can see, I usually save my comments for anything that's long and complicated as far as code is concerned. Click the green arrow and my game's back on. Game over again. Now I'm just going to introduce a new feature for the good guy. So rather than just saying ouch every time, to introduce a bit of variety, I'm going to get him say a random statement every time he touches the bad guy. So I'm going to put that in there. So I'm going to introduce a variable type which is called a list. So I'm going to make a list here. I'm going to call it things to say. Make it available to all sprites. Now my things to say block is empty here at the moment, so let's fill it up with things to say by clicking on the plus button here, and I'll keep my first statement there and I'll just say ouch. Clicking and typing into the box, I'll hit enter and I'll say that hurts, and a few other choice phrases. Be as witty as you wish. So I'll stick to 4 items here. Now I don't want this list to be visible here. I want that to be kind of a hidden thing, so as opposed to the lives being displayed, I'm going to have that hiding in the background while the game is on. We want that to appear out of the mouth of the good guy. Now what I want to do every time the good guy gets hit, rather than saying ouch, I'm going to pull out one of the items of the list, and rather than saying item 1, he can say any of the items, just one of the random items there from the list. So let's start the game and see this in action. So you can see as he gets hit, there's a variety of random things coming out of his mouth. There's our game over again.